The American election of 2020 was rather turbulent, and neither side covered themselves in glory. Donald Trump's behaviour was rather distasteful, and many of his supporters seemed defined by a bitter petulance too. But the other side have little to be proud of. Countless people on the left, who have spent years spreading lies about Russian collusion, who have launched a number of hysterical impeachments, or who have used every trick in the book to try to block the democratic mandate of Brexit, whipping up mobs in the street or issuing high court injunctions, ended up screaming with fury about decency and democracy. They were outraged that Donald Trump spent 4 days doing what they'd been doing for 4 years. This brazen hypocrisy was startling, yet they seemed oblivious to how their moral high ground was made of sand. David Lammy had previously wailed that the Brexit mantra was bollocks because Vote Leave cheated. My, doesn't that rhetoric sound familiar? He argued that Scotland and London voted against it, rather like how, say, Florida and Texas had voted against Biden. And he even argued that the public supports a people's vote, despite the fact that the public voted for Brexit on 4 consecutive occasions: the referendum in 2016, the general elections of 2017 and 2019, waged on the mandate that Brexit means Brexit and let's get Brexit done, and the EU elections of 2019, won by the Brexit Party. Despite this, Lammy ended up arguing that Boris Johnson and Dominic Raab's silence as Donald Trump attempts to undermine the American people's right to free and fair elections is a national disgrace. We must have the courage to stand up for democracy, whoever attacks it. No exceptions. Well, quite. These sentiments were echoed thousands of times by equally shameless individuals with seemingly zero self-awareness. Britain's Liberal Democrats had made repudiating Brexit their keystone policy, yet Layla Moran, who recently contested the leadership of that party, tweeted that Trump is doing his best to undermine trust in the democratic process in the US, the free and fair elections that make it such an example to so much of the world. She even argued that any action against democratic rights must be strongly condemned by the UK. Lib Dems will always stand up for people's rights, whether that's the right to vote or the right to practice their beliefs. Yes, she actually said that. Amid all this turgid bitterness and flagrant hypocrisy, one figure made all the right noises. He stood out for his decency and clemency. And it's quite an important figure, because that man was Joe Biden. The next president said, "We may be opponents, but we are not enemies. We are Americans. We have to remember the purpose of our politics isn't totally unrelenting warfare." He also made it clear that to make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as enemies. We are not enemies. Once this election is finalised and behind us, it will be time for us to do what we've always done as Americans, to put the harsh rhetoric of the campaign behind us. Let me be clear. I campaigned as a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. Now, these are fine words. That's stirring rhetoric. And I certainly hope Biden lives up to them. Even if, considering the fact that he forgot his granddaughter's name on the day of the election, it's doubtful how long his presidency will last. And if he fades, the hard left seem poised to take over the party. and they were, rather predictably, somewhat less tolerant and compassionate. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez made no attempt to disguise the fact that she seeks vengeance on those who've had the temerity to hold different opinions to her. AOC, as she is known, sneered, "Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee a decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, photos in the future." Who does AOC sound like here? Does she sound like Martin Luther King, as perhaps she'd like to think? Or does she sound rather more like Mao or Stalin, hoping to preserve evidence for the show trials of Trotskyists and deviationists to come, while she hurls abuse at them from the sidelines? Is this her supposedly kinder, gentler politics? We can perhaps tell from her response. Lol at the party of personal responsibility, being upset at the idea of being responsible for their behaviour over the last 4 years. Now, I'm all for personal responsibility. But what's become increasingly common on the left again is the chilling threat of consequences, the veiled implication of being held to account. This has been made explicit by many who are even more overt than AOC. Ben Meiselas threatened that if you hire someone who remained with the Trump administration after the election, be on notice. You will be held accountable by Midas Touch, and we will ensure you are exposed. Ben's threats received dozens of endorsements from others rather too keen on a bit of retribution. Yes, love this. Keep 'em all accountable, said Stacey Purple Courage. Can't wait to watch the carnage. Actions have consequences. Always. Arctic Char gloated that I want them to be unemployable for the remainder of their lives, while Party of Five agreed. Yes, these people shall never ever live another day in peace. I, for one, would gladly volunteer to help with this effort. I'm sure you would. Queen of Resistance chipped in too. Yes to all of this. Every one of them must be rejected by society. A look at her profile is revealing. Lover of life, free spirit, BLM, gun control now, LGBTQ, vote or die. Where's her goddamn mask? Well, she went from hippie to KGB pretty rapidly there. They always do. Because make no mistake, these are the people who, in the right circumstances, would be queuing up to join the Red Guards, the Gestapo, and the Khmer Rouge in a heartbeat, eager as anything to give the class enemy a good thrashing. Jennifer Rubin, of the Washington Post and MSNBC, sounded rather Stalinist. She suggested that any Republican now promoting rejection of an election, or calling to not follow the will of voters, or making baseless allegations of fraud should never serve in office, join a corporate board, find a faculty position, or be accepted into polite society. We have a list. It's strange that her list excludes all the Democrats who spent the last 4 years spreading lies about Russian collusion and launching hysterical and largely unfounded impeachments. But there you go. At the risk of invoking Godwin's law here, this was exactly how the Holocaust started. Barring the Jews from any influential positions was the very first measures the Nazis took in 1933, nearly 10 years before the gas chambers. It's generally considered a better idea to learn from history than to repeat it, especially if you want to consider yourself on the right side of history, which we hear a lot. Yet her post is currently on 40,000 likes. Yet not satisfied with this, Rubin went on to TV, where she made even more outrageous comments. I'd like you to watch this clip. with her colleagues nodding along as they always do. But imagine to yourself, how would these people have reacted if Trump had said exactly the same things about them?
It's not only that Trump has to lose, but that all his enablers have to lose. We have to collectively, in essence, burn down the Republican Party. We have to level them, because if there are survivors, if there are people who weathered this storm, they will do it again. They will take this as confirmation that, hey, it just pays to ride the waves. Look at me, I've made it through. And so up and down the ticket, federal, state, local offices, the country has to repudiate this. This has become a dysfunctional anti-government party. That is not
Nice. Now, I was far from alone in predicting that if Trump won, there would be riots, whereas if Biden won, there would be celebrations, but no riots. A rather predictable forecast. But it's not just that after 4 years of proving themselves abysmal losers, sections of the left are now proving that they're even worse winners. Because promising vengeance on your political opponents and swearing that you will cleanse Congress of any deviationists is not a good look, particularly if you pride yourself on your tolerance and compassion. This is the same impulse that has driven the left to commit 50 genocides in the last 70 years. Vengeance powered revolutionary France, Soviet Russia, Maoist China, Khmer Cambodia, and additional horrors in Ethiopia, Angola, and across the globe. Now, I'm not suggesting that the same thing will happen here and now, because very different circumstances are in play. But I am suggesting, considering the possible consequences, that maybe a different approach would be preferable, or that such people might want to step off their moral high ground. If you've enjoyed this film, please like and subscribe, and if you're interested in these subjects, then I've written 2 books which go into these topics in extensive detail. They're called The Tyranny of the Left, and they're available on Amazon. There are links in the heading below. Please feel free to pick them up and let me know what you think. Thank you.